What if I told you that buying hardware to play games was overrated? That the thousands of dollars some of us spend to experience modern games has gone the way of DVD players and can mostly be replaced by a strong internet connection? Welcome to Game Data. This week, we're discussing a service that makes that claim and makes it pretty strongly. I'm talking about Google Stadia. Now, just hearing that name is bound to provoke some serious emotions in a few groups of people. Some folks thought it was dead on arrival, others are still cautiously waiting to see if Google repurposes their tech for something after some imagined day when Stadia goes under, and others of us actually use the service. As someone who's spent hundreds of hours playing games on Stadia and other cloud streaming services, I can tell you that the service actually works pretty great, although it's definitely not without its faults. Which is why I wanted to make a video discussing how Stadia's simultaneously impressed and really let me down over the years, what some of that disappointment might say about the future of the service, and why I'd still recommend you check it out nonetheless. For those who haven't been paying attention to gaming news over the past few years, Google Stadia is a cloud-based game streaming service that allows users to essentially log into a computer miles away and play any purchased game from Stadia's library. We did a brief explanation of how cloud gaming works in our previous video on why xCloud actually makes sense on the Series X, but here's how we ultimately described the functionality back then. Essentially, as long as the computer you're using has a strong connection to the server, generally a reasonably reliably fast internet connection, and can display video at a desired frame rate and resolution, you can play extremely demanding games from a low-powered computer, which couldn't typically run the game itself. For example, through Stadia, I can easily play Destiny 2 on my Surface Duo 2 with a decent frame rate and resolution, but running the game directly on the Duo itself would look terrible, if there were even any way to get it running at all. Stadia in particular is important in the realm of cloud streaming since it was first to market. Well, the first completely functional platform on the market at least, which is kind of the whole appeal of Stadia. Since launch, it's just kind of worked. Before it launched, even just working seemed like a high bar for these types of services. Services like Gaikai and OnLive tried to tackle cloud streaming much earlier, but wound up with a barely functional product due to early tech issues and Sony absorbing both of them and shelving their cloud tech until recently. Shadow, possibly the topic of an entirely different video, also existed prior to Stadia, but they've experienced problems of their own over the years and aren't quite the same as a dedicated gaming service since they rent out full-fledged cloud-based PCs. That distinction is actually fairly important here. Instead of renting a whole Windows computer, Stadia gives users space on their servers to run any of the pre-selected games within Stadia's optimized library. Think less gaming rig and more game console, with all of the implications of standardization and reduced game choices that brings with it. Those limitations aren't entirely bad though. When streaming a full computer session, performance is all about choosing core count, GPU, storage, RAM, etc., with a variety of different price points to go along with it. From personal experience renting space on Azure machines, it can all get kinda complex and go over a lot of people's heads, even for services that streamline the process like Shadow. By simplifying everything to just 2 performance tiers, Stadia makes using their service akin to choosing between a Series X and a Series S. On the upper end, you get up to 4K 60 HDR performance, a couple free games per month, and discounts in the Stadia store, all for $10 a month. But if you're chill with 1080-60 and don't need those extra games and discounts, Stadia is actually a completely free platform. Technically, if you only play free-to-play games, like Destiny 2, you could use Stadia all day, every day, without handing Google a penny. Realistically though, you'll probably want to buy at least a couple games from the store to fill out your library. It's the same process of buying a digital game from the Nintendo eShop or Xbox Game Store, with similar prices. Sales happen all the time though, and if you're like me and hate paying full price for digital games, that's a real boon. Especially when subscribed to the Pro tier, it's fairly easy to gather a ton of games for not a lot of money. Think PS Plus or Humble Bundle here. While the free games can admittedly be hit or miss, with some months offering games like Control, Superhot, or Outriders, and other months offering considerably less, it's still a great way to passively create a collection without investing too much money up front. If a handful of games each month are enough and you don't want to dump a ton of money into Stadia to begin with, Ubisoft Plus also exists as a decent add-on if all you want to play are Ubisoft games, and it's currently only $18 a month, which, isn't a great price, but the value might still be there if you wanted to do something like binge all the Assassin's Creed games or Far Cry games. The true cost here actually comes from your data plan. Especially for higher resolution streams, you personally need to have enough speed and bandwidth on your internet connection. While optimizations from developers and device-specific limitations also play a role in stream quality, an unreliable connection makes Stadia just about unplayable. Google recommends at minimum 10 to 35 megabits per second to play games, but you really want to throw as much speed and bandwidth at the service as possibly can. Wired connections or access points with few devices connected can also make a huge difference for maintaining quality. I've had decent experiences on my phones over both 5 gigahertz and 5G connections without worrying too much, but your mileage may vary. Oh, and you also need a very large data cap. Streaming that much interactive audio-visual content demands a ton of data to operate. Google themselves claim that a 4K stream could claim up to 20 gigabytes per hour. And that's pretty much matching my personal experience. From the 20-ish minutes I spent streaming games at 1080p over a 5G connection to capture B-roll for this video, Stadia consumed over 1 gigabyte of data. That might not be terrible when connected via home or public networks, but any mobile plan will likely crumble beneath Stadia's might over time. Google kinda expects you to figure all of this out on yourself, or at least stumble upon its online help pages. And as long as you know what to expect, you can actually go in there and manually limit stream quality to help with the data drain. And honestly, I recommend setting those limits if you can, so that you're not consuming a ton of data when not tethered to your home network. There's something magical about being able to go anywhere and still have all the horsepower of a mid to upper mid-range PC on just about any device you own. Especially for gamers on a budget, it's hard to imagine a cheaper, easier, legal way to play newer games. Again, it all just kind of works, and works fast. It takes very little time and effort to just start playing the game you want to play. Something which really isn't true of other platforms, like Steam, where getting started in a game is really dependent upon how long it takes the game to download or install updates. No joke, once you spend a ton of time on cloud streaming platforms, waiting any amount of time whatsoever for a game to download or update feels like it's taking ages. For example, there's a link to Destiny 2 on Stadia in this video's description. Click on that link, sign in with a Google account, fill out some details, and you can start playing in less than a minute. No cost, no fuss, it just sort of works. For Destiny 2 in particular, it's also great for convincing others to play with you, considering it's completely free, requires absolutely no storage space, and still works with crossplay. Unless you're playing on a really trash or unstable internet connection, it will also play at a pretty great quality. We aren't necessarily talking about the highest end tier graphics performance. Again, it's somewhere between Series S and Series X here, but it's more than suitable for anyone who isn't going in expecting the same quality as a $3,000+ gaming rig. More importantly, frame rate tends to be as stable and smooth as the game will allow. In my 70+ hours making my way through Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the only serious oddities or glitches I noticed were pretty similar to those I also experienced while playing Valhalla on my Series X. In general, I found that if the connection dips for any reason, Stadia will prioritize smoother frame rates over resolution. So if stability falls a bit, some video quality might drop while your connection figures out what's happening. If the instability causes a crash, Stadia will also automatically pause the game and maintain your position for 15 minutes so that you can reconnect. Neither situation is exactly ideal, but it's still fairly easy to play through when something bad happens. Input lag is much the same way. I haven't experienced any play sessions where it was incredibly noticeable. Google has claimed they've built algorithms into their processing pipeline to help anticipate input and reduce controller lag. Whatever they're doing appears to be working, although lag's definitely still there if you go looking for it. Comparing slow-mo footage between Stadia and an emulated GBA game, we found Stadia to have about 3 times the delay. We're still talking a few milliseconds here though. The folks who will really notice it are the ones who might already find that wireless controllers and mice cause too much delay for them. For those folks, cloud gaming probably isn't the way to go for them anyway. To further help with connectivity, Google also built their own custom controller. When run wirelessly, it connects via Wi-Fi with a few button presses to pair everything. There are also buttons on board to take screenshots, summon the Google Assistant, and open up the Xbox-like Stadia game menu. It's all pretty standard stuff and feels pretty solid overall compared to a DualShock 4 or Xbox One controller, even if not quite as great as either. I got my Stadia controller with the Founders Edition bundle before Stadia launched. That also came with a few months of Stadia and a Chromecast Ultra. If you can, I might recommend tracking down a similar bundle if you want the best Stadia setup possible. As versatile as the service is, I've yet to find anything that's worked quite as seamlessly as a wired Chromecast, especially if you want to just play on any random monitor you have lying around. Nowadays, Google will sell you the controller alone for $69, but I've seen mountains of promotions and Goodwill listings selling them for much cheaper than that. But honestly, whatever controller you want to use will likely work fine with Stadia in most cases. On mobile, touch controls are even available if you don't mind a bit of awkwardness. It very much seems like Google wants you to use their service in any way you feel comfortable doing so, which is all right by me. If all of this sounds great to you so far, pause this video, go try Stadia out for yourself, and come back later. Honestly, this is a service that really benefits from personal experience. Depending on where you're located and the quality of your internet connection, you may have an entirely different experience than me here at home in Chicago with gigabit speeds over a Wi-Fi 6 connection. As solid as the service is, no one can really control for all the networking related variables associated with every random consumer who wants to use the service. That's really the first major problem to know with Stadia. I could talk about the technical positives all day, but if you can't get a stable connection, you'll have a completely different experience and wonder what the hell I'm even talking about. That seemed to be particularly a problem when the service first launched. Along with the typical pains of launching a new service in the first place, I recall more than a few media folks trying Stadia for the first time using their work building's congested Wi-Fi connection and complaining when it lagged or wasn't a pristine experience. Bandwidth is key to having a good time on Stadia, and the concept of play anywhere might be limited in public Wi-Fi hotspots like coffee shops, attempting to split connections with many users at a time. Not to mention, server placement can also be a factor. Google does have a ton of servers set up to handle Stadia traffic, in the US at least, but certain folks are bound to be closer to a given server than others. Kinda like with online gaming in general, the ping between servers might add additional milliseconds to input latency. That can become a problem if enough time is added to make the delay noticeable for anyone not typically paying attention. But it's still really a try and see sort of situation. And that might be pretty frustrating to hear, and enough to make many people write off the service altogether as an unstable mess. I can't really blame them either, nor can I necessarily blame Google, since the nature of these types of cloud services are just bound to not be available for folks in some areas. It's like places where Netflix streaming still isn't viable because broadband internet still isn't a thing. In fact, if it were the only issue to speak of for Stadia, I feel like this would be a much more popular service. But that's unfortunately not the case. Going back to launch, most reviews tended to recognize that the service works far better than their expectations. Yet, they scored it low because it lacked many features Google advertised before launch, and because the initial rollout wasn't entirely smooth. While some peripheral features still aren't available years later, key features like expanded phone compatibility, touchpad controls, and playing over mobile connections work just fine. There's also nothing missing here that really ruins the experience of playing Stadia games. But still, the remnants of those lower scores remains as a sort of black mark on Stadia's history. Similarly, before launch, many people just figured that Stadia would be awful, and a subset of them did everything possible to confirm their suspicions or otherwise tell everyone that they knew not to bother because they figured Google would eventually kill the service anyway. Overall, it feels like there's been a tad bit more animosity toward the service than other consoles, even though it's almost always worked as advertised. I feel like that's severely stunted Stadia's growth, and possibly why the store's library also isn't larger. It's kind of like what happened with the Wii U. People didn't quite get it at launch, or convince themselves it wasn't worthwhile. That resulted in a smaller user base, resulting in less interest from developers to port their games, resulting in less incentive for folks to join the service, resulting in a smaller user base, and on and on and on and on until rumors pop up that it's going to be discontinued, the people who didn't support the console feel justified, and the people who enjoyed playing the console feel left out to dry. It's an awkward feedback loop, which results in a worse experience for everyone. And that's not to say Google hasn't had a role in any of these negative perceptions. After all, they have a known track record of killing their own projects a bit too early, and they've already closed down their dedicated game studio they created just to make Stadia exclusives. They've also been ineffective in dragging more developers to Stadia or scoring big exclusives. Not to mention, the seamless game sharing promised before launch is still a few steps short of where it could be. But when there are so many people writing off a new platform, that platform's bound to become super limited in how it can actually go. At some point, even the folks running the platform need to figure out a way to justify keeping everything running. For Google, that could eventually mean migrating Stadia's tech to more of a support role for developers rather than a full-fledged consumer-facing game console. We're seeing that a bit already. With Resident Evil 8, they publicly stated they're using the underlying Stadia tech to start supporting cloud-based games for developers, even if those games don't sell through the Stadia store. That could mean way better performance for cloud-based games on other platforms, but it lessens the need to keep Stadia running as a consumer-facing service. And all this really puts me in an awkward position as someone who's stayed on the service since launch. The limits to Stadia's expansion and library mean that it's gotten pretty hard to find games I actually want to buy on Stadia that I couldn't get elsewhere with better performance. It's all the games I could instead buy on PS5, Series X, Switch, or even, a Steam-ready handheld like the Steam Deck. It's incredibly easy to play more and more modern games than offered through Stadia on my physical hardware. Not to mention, I'm now subscribing to Game Pass Ultimate and PS Plus Premium, which both offer many more games I actually want to play without buying them individually. When Stadia launched, I was excited about the possibilities of the tech and how little I needed to get games up and running, but it feels like my expectations have grown to more than just being able to play a game on my phone, because I now have at least 3 other services that can also do that, even if Stadia is still technically better at it. Meanwhile, Stadia has just kind of grown much slower for the reasons we've already discussed. It feels like it's only a matter of time before I stop finding the price of Pro worth paying for, unless they bundle it in with one of their other services like YouTube Premium or Google Fi. And that kind of sucks. Like the Wii U, Stadia is incredibly solid, and I just wanted so much more out of it. But at the end of the day, it's still hard for me not to recommend giving Stadia a shot. After all, it's free, so why not try it, at least for the experience, am I right? But also, even if the low adoption has resulted in a service that's not the most necessary for someone like me with tons of other existing hardware and streaming options, it feels like the perfect console for anyone who's just getting into gaming and doesn't want to pay a lot of money or huge upfront costs to build a gaming PC, grab a current gen console, or pay another monthly subscription fee. It's a very low commitment sort of service, which still manages to stream its games much better than the competition. As a transitionary console or a way to keep little kids entertained, it's hard to do better than Stadia. I can't promise you Stadia will be perfect or that Google will keep it around forever. No one but Google could really make guesses at that. But I can say that early lackluster reviews and the exaggeration of its early demise were both still overrated 2+ years after launch. If there's a game on sale on the service right now that you'd like to play, I'd say give it a shot. In 2022, it likely won't completely blow your mind, but it's still a very portable service, and you could definitely do a lot worse. Those are my thoughts though. Why not head down to the comment section and let me know yours? I'd love to see where people currently stand with Stadia, and especially if they've given it a shot at all. For anyone interested, I've also dropped one of those handy links that give extended free trials for Stadia Pro in the description. If you end up using the link, definitely also leave a comment to let me know how that went. Also, if you found this video interesting or informative, go ahead and click that like button. And then also click that subscribe button to see more videos like this in the future. With all this talk about cloud streaming, I feel like we also might need a video discussing what it actually means to own a game that you've purchased. But that's all for now. Until next time, catch you later.